Hi there, my name's Steve Schenk, and I'm the founder and creative director of Reverie Productions. In this video, I want to walk you through the process of designing and creating a biodiversity trail. Now, if you watched my last video in which I took you through a tour of the Wilton Simpson Citrus Campus Biodiversity Trail in Lecanto, Florida, you may have gotten a sense that a biodiversity trail project is just too big for you. If I'm being really honest, the fact that that trail is a permanent installation with 32 exhibits, and it leaves you with the impression that this is just too big. It's going to cost me thousands of dollars. How can I do this thing? I'm here to tell you a biodiversity trail does not have to take that form. The concept is basically combining a miniature science museum with a walking tour. That's all it has to be. And so you could actually create a biodiversity trail with as little as some printer paper, a smartphone, and a QR code generator. And that's it. So let me share with you a few ideas I have for what I think would make really cool, small biodiversity trails that could be installed right here in Central Vermont. Let's say you're an elementary school teacher who's doing a unit on local wildlife. Have your students design artwork to create a simple classroom trail. Guide them through the content and involve them in the design process. Then give them the chance to play the role of teacher through their art. It would be easy to expand the experience for a science night or parent-teacher conferences by adding a QR code to each exhibit and then linking that to additional material that either you create or to additional artwork the students create. Or let's say you're a small business owner who loves to fish. You could create a handful of simple exhibits, each consisting of a piece of paper with a title, a photograph, and a QR code that links to a simple web page with some text and additional photos. By placing them strategically around your property, you give your customers something to do while waiting, and you help them get to know you better. Finally, let's say you're a principal or a team of teachers looking to promote the benefits of being physically active. You could use existing bulletin boards and displays in your school hallways to create exhibits about how exercise benefits the body. Multiple classes could contribute, with each class being responsible for a different exhibit. The final walking tour of the school could be as temporary or as permanent as you choose. The key takeaway here is that cost and scale don't determine what a biodiversity trail can be. All you need is an interest in nature, a topic you want to share, and a willingness to take on the project. You determine the scale, you determine the permanence, we help you bring it to life. The basic process of designing and installing a biodiversity trail consists of 5 essential parts. I want to walk you through those 5 parts now, and then afterwards, I'll share with you how we at Reverie Productions can help you get that installation off the ground. By establishing some concrete goals from the beginning, you create the North Star for the rest of your design process. Everything else can be flexible so long as your goals are clear and keep your audience in mind. When I designed Biodiversity Citrus, I had 3 main goals: to spotlight local biodiversity, to teach a general audience about ecology, and to link ecology and biodiversity to the local economy. In setting my goals, I knew from past experience that a lot of people's science education failed to connect with the world beyond the classroom, and that left them feeling like it didn't matter. So if I was going to create something to try to teach a general audience about science education, I needed to meet my audience where they were. I had to reach out and think about their interests. That's the reason my goals focused on local biodiversity and on connecting ecology to the local economy. I'm thinking during my goal setting process not only of what I want to teach, but who I want to reach. If you set your goals correctly, you don't need to worry about them after that. Everything else in the project can be in flux constantly, so long as the goals are stable from the beginning. Now, once you've set your goals, it's time to move on to identifying the particular topics that will be included in your exhibits. For this step, I really encourage you to start with a lot of ambition, but maintain flexibility as you proceed. When I was designing Biodiversity Citrus, I initially had more than 50 topics, and I thought all of them were absolutely critical to be included, so I went through and identified all of them. When I got to the layout stage, however, it became very clear that between logistic limitations on one hand and budgetary limits on the other, I didn't have space for 50 exhibits. And so I had to cut down on my topic number. At this point, I introduce flexibility by revisiting those all-important goals and just asking a couple questions. Which of these topic ideas best support the goals that you've already identified? You keep those topics. Are there any other topics that could be combined in a way that makes sense? You can keep those topics. Anything else? Cutting room floor. Remember, it's far easier at the end to edit out and remove topics from a list that's too long than it is to come up on the fly with brand new topics to fill voids. This step is all about space and materials. Think about your available space and how you want to use it to determine the number of actual exhibits that you're going to include in your trail. When I was designing Biodiversity Citrus, I initially took that list of over 50 exhibit topics down to 40. But as I got into the physical layout and planning stage, it became clear after talking to my campus's director of plant operations that some of the locations I wanted really weren't very good for reasons like really bad sun exposure that just I hadn't thought about that. When you are planning your space, think about it carefully and do not hesitate to get feedback from other people so you use it with maximal efficiency. Now, when it comes to materials, the only question that really matters is how permanent is your exhibit going to be. When I was designing Biodiversity Citrus, that was intended to be a permanent outdoor exhibit, something that would be up for literally years in Florida. And so more than 70% of my budget was for high quality metal signs, high quality outdoor grade bulletin boards, high quality aluminum signposts that wouldn't blow away in a hurricane. You do not have to go to that level of expense. You don't have to spend thousands of dollars to make this work. If your trail is going to be temporary, maybe it's going to last a few weeks or a couple months, you can get away with drawing paper and art supplies and maybe a printer and printer paper. That's all you need to get started. You want something a little sturdier? Get some cardstock. Lamination is your friend for things like this. You can have especially indoor trails that are longer lasting on a very, very slim to zero budget. You choose the materials that will work best for you and your particular timeline. And now that we've finished going through the early steps, we get to the most fun part. At this point, let your artistic creativity rip. Posters, drawings, photographs, comics, poems, models, paintings, choose the media that you want to use. As I said in my last video, mixing your media makes for more interesting end products. Don't be intimidated at the prospect of designing digital content. There are definitely resources available to help you with that. And something as simple as a photograph of a drawing can make for a pretty cool digital graphic. This is a great step to lean into collaboration. Perhaps you have resources available you didn't know about until you started generating content. For example, after starting content generation on Biodiversity Citrus, I discovered that the campus library had multiple 3D printers available for students and staff to use at no charge. It opened up new content avenues and totally changed the look of that project. Bottom line, if you unleash your creative beast and seek out collaborators, this step can be absolutely delightful to complete. The final step is all about installation. Now, depending on the scale and permanence of your trail, this could range from something you can do by yourself in just a few minutes to things you may need professional assistance with, so plan carefully. In the case of Biodiversity Citrus, I work closely with the plant operations department. They had the tools and expertise to mount the bulletin boards and install the signs. They were absolutely indispensable in the assembly process. I also had a few paid assistants and a lot of unpaid volunteers who helped to install bulletin board exhibits on scheduled days. Regardless of the scale and size of your particular project, make sure you schedule installation times in advance. Not only does that help with logistic issues, it ensures you can recruit volunteers and also gives you time to make sure every last little thing is done. Absolutely don't overlook the little things. Mat every piece of artwork, glue pins to models, get all of that done before the installation, and it will run a lot smoother. So how can we at Reverie Productions help you in designing your biodiversity trail? There's a number of ways. I personally really enjoy coming in and talking to groups, especially classrooms, about these projects to help your group better understand what the project is, to get them excited about it, to help inspire them to come up with ways that they can contribute. I'm also happy to be available to help you get through the early planning stages. And if it's more appropriate to interact with me virtually because of distance, I'm absolutely available through Zoom to assist as well. From helping with organism identification to providing feedback on scientific accuracy and exhibit layouts, I'm a resource you can use. Finally, we can provide support for your digital content. That can involve lending our expertise to help with poster, infographic, and video design, or we can support digital content hosting. For either or both of these things, Reverie Productions is available to provide on-site and remote assistance. So if you're in Central Vermont and you're interested in designing a biodiversity trail with us, or if you have questions about the process, or simply have questions about how you can support Reverie Productions community initiatives, make sure to reach out to us through the contact forms found on our website. Until next time, cheers. Is it cheers, Gingy? Oh, sweet girl.